Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. There's been a number of people wanting me to talk about these protests taking place on college campuses across the United States. And, I wanted it to kind of like play out a little bit to see if this was going to be like a larger event. And at this point, I think I am going to go ahead and put it on my Second Coming timeline. This is like my master timeline for different events. And so I put it here. I'm just going off of Wikipedia's dates until I get something maybe a little bit more solid in the future. But they have it as having started on the 17th of April. And so over here in column J, this is where, you can kind of visualize how long it's going on for. Like columns E through M, those are like my event columns where there's like ongoing things that are taking place. And I've taken notice of other protests like this in the past, and I'm going to talk about what my view is on these kind of things. You'll notice column K right here. For a long time, you had these really big protests in Israel over the judicial reforms, where they basically want to the government in power right now wants to make changes to the judicial branch because they feel that it has more power. And of course, there's an opposition to that, mainly the secular liberals, because that's one of their cards that they play in Israel. That's where they get through some of their agendas through the judicial branch. And so ever since the beginning of the year of 2023, January 7th of all days, with a 7 right there, that's when that started. And so I have that here. I also we're gonna come back to that in a minute. I also have the George Floyd protest that took place. Everyone remembers that. That was back in 2020, a very chaotic year. And it basically went from the end of May until the end of August. That's how long those protests went on. And I class them as all the same. And you might wonder why, if you haven't watched my channel for very long, why would I class these as the same thing? Because these are all different issues. And in reality, in my mind, I don't think that they are. And I'll explain what I mean. Okay, so I came across this video. This was, I know it says 43 minutes ago, but this was like actually a couple days ago. I just haven't refreshed this yet. I came across this video from CBN News. It's called Expert, U.S. Campus Protests Fueled by Major Foreign Funding, also backed by Iran, Hamas. So I feel like whenever you have these like big protests that are like, they go for a long time and they're sustained and they don't really make a lot of sense, or it feels like they're kind of like blown out of proportion. I feel that there's always something going on beneath the surface that you may not see. And sometimes you kind of can see it when you can see that there's like money coming in that's paying for stuff like piles of bricks so that people can riot and use the bricks to cause chaos wherever they're rioting. Or in the case of the Israeli protest, there were outside groups that funded for tents so that there was like this big march from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. It was like this grand like show of like solidarity in opposing the judicial reforms, which, by the way, were taking place as a result of a democratically elected government. And yet they're claiming to defend democracy by trying to force their will on that elected government. But anyway, let's just, put that aside. So they marched from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in this like big grand show of force and whatever, making a lot of noise. And somebody had already paid ahead of time for tents to be that purchased the tents, as well as Israeli flags for the protesters, and then have those tents set up outside of the Knesset building, which is their like legislative, building, like the U.S. Capitol building. And you can tell a lot of times, like in a very obvious way, they're being funded by those that are in power or those that have money. So I don't view these things as organic. There may be some organic elements to it, but for them to become as strong as they are and sustained as long as they do, I think that's a result of these higher, these higher powers. So As of right now, the news today, Columbia University cancels commencement ceremony following student protests. So of course it's ruining people's lives just like it usually does. They do things like that. They block traffic when you're trying to get to work or maybe the hospital or something important, and they're trying to shove their agenda down your throat and disrupting your life. So the way that I see it, I've done this video. It's a lot to talk about, so that's why I'm not like, I don't think I'm ever going to redo this. This is like an hour and a half long video. Did World War III start on this date? And I go through all the different reasons to believe that, the Third World War, I think a lot of people are sitting around waiting for a Third World War. Like there's going to be some announcement on the news or something like that, where it's like, we are now in World War III. And I tend to think that we are probably already in it, and it's just not a war that we recognize because warfare has advanced. There's more efficient ways to change governments throughout the world and to achieve your goals in certain regions of the world. It doesn't always have to be tanks and troops and artillery and helicopters and things like that. There are sneakier ways to do it, more efficient ways to do it, more clandestine, where nobody really knows, why this happened, because it was that sneaky. So I would invite you to watch this video if you aren't really familiar with what I'm talking about, where I go into it in more detail. But essentially what I think it boils down to is you have two main competing ideologies in the world of like what the world should be. One view is that we should become like just like when you watch Star Trek, there's this United Federation of Planets where it's a utopian society. There really isn't any like sovereignty anymore. Everyone is just like living this communal lifestyle. It's not a capitalistic society. It's basically a socialist or communist society where everyone just kind of focus on their own interests. Like, you have a desire to become a scientist. That's what you work for. And that's how you find fulfillment in life. And you'll notice that in Star Trek, they never portray very large families. Everyone's either single or just has like one or two children. And, I think that's one of these competing forces and ideologies is you have the West that's trying to achieve this. And then on the other side, you have those countries that want to kind of like maintain the status quo and fight for sovereignty and do that kind of thing. And so I think that naturally you have those countries and those groups that want it one way, and then the other groups and countries that want it another way. And there's these ways that you can try and destabilize the other side and change that government or that country. Or within your own country, you can do the same thing. You don't have to just be attacking other countries. You can use these same tactics against your own country, because in reality, when you're these kind of people, these Gadianton robbers and secret combinations, you don't view things as like, oh, this is my country. You're trying to get rid of countries, and you're trying to shape the world into what you want it to be, because you know better than everybody else. So I think that's the heart of it. Oh yeah, really quick, I watched this speech by Biden. I liked what he said. Of course, I do not like his politics. I don't hardly agree with anything that he does. And of course, it's just words, but the words that he did speak, I think were right. As to whether that's going to take hold with anybody, I don't think so. Is it going to influence the protest? Probably not. Is he, in his heart of hearts, is he like for the protests and for these secret combination agendas? Yeah, I think he is. So they're probably just hollow words, but I liked what he said. I'm going to give him credit where credit's due, but does it really mean much? I don't know. I don't think so. But anyway, one of these methods I think that are being used as part of this world war is the color revolution. I've talked about this before. It seems like with, I don't know, the advent of the internet and social media, especially, you have these new ways to conduct warfare and psychological operations where, especially if you're a country like the United States, where you have these social media companies that are based in your country, and other countries can't really do anything about it. They can try and restrict internet access, but you have these social media companies that assist in these protests forming and even encourage them in various ways. Even down to creating these disgusting little emojis like with raised fists and flags and megaphones and stuff like that, so you can like be really cool with your friends and encourage this kind of behavior. So I think that this is a new weapon, a new method to change other governments, and it has been successful. You have this Wikipedia article called Color Revolution, and it goes into different countries that have experienced these color revolutions. Russia has been particularly concerned about it because they're kind of a powerhouse for that like nationalist side of things. And they, based on this article, this is from Center for Strategic and International Studies. It's called Russia and the Color Revolution. I've already read this a few times on the channel. I'm not going to read it again, but essentially they were having this like defense conference, and they were talking about their concern of the West, well, like it says right here, deliberately destabilizing nations in North Africa, the Middle East, and the rest of the world for their own ends. And essentially, from my point of view, that's what this current conflict is all about, is them trying to push back against the West, trying to like shape Europe and everything, and even Russia itself. So you have this. You also had this was from 2022 to 2023. According to these dates, there was what I think is a failed color revolution in Iran. I think Iran is also aware of what is going on, and they're on the other side of this conflict. And I think the West has probably tried a few times to get things going over there, and they haven't been that successful. However, there was this really big event that I think went over a lot of people's heads. I don't know, but it was a huge event called the Arab Spring. And this took place, let me look at the dates here. This was back like when Romney was running for president. Basically, oh, here it is, from December 2010 until December 2012. You had this like rash of revolutions and civil wars that all broke out like wildfire, not just in one country, but it spread to all these other countries, and the effects are still being felt to this day. Most notably, I'd say the Syrian civil war that's taking place, but others too. You have Yemen with the Houthis and the other groups that are vying for power in that country. But this event was called the Arab Spring. And I remember watching it very closely. I remember when things were kicking off in Egypt, and how the news, like CBS and CNN, and they were like talking about the fact that social media was an important component of these protests. That's just a little convenient, don't you think? So they have a table here that shows you like the main things that took place with each of these protests and revolutions. They have this map that you can look at. So purple, government overthrown more than once. So that's Egypt and Yemen. And then in black, government overthrown, but just once. And you have Tunisia. And if I remember right, I think Tunisia is where it actually started. That was like the first one. And then you have civil war in the case of Libya and Syria. And then green, or this like teal color, protests and governmental changes, right? And so you have all the rest of it. So I do not believe that it was organic. I think that there was organic potential there. And so those that have the ability to instigate that were able to do so because they recognize the opportunity. So it's not just purely, I don't think that you can just purely just create one of these things out of nothing. There has to be some kind of organic, natural unrest that's kind of like simmering. but I think that you can like really help it to get going by funding it and also using different tactics. And they talk about that here again, CBN News expert U.S. protests fueled by major foreign funding, also backed by Iran, Hamas, and then it talks about others. But I'll let you watch this video, and it's going to be the same people that we always see time and time again. People that are inside our country. So what you have, and I'm sorry to say, well, okay, we're not gonna paint with broad strokes. When you have any sort of group, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a church, whether it's a political party, whether it's a protest like this, you always have different categories of people. You do have people that are genuine, that like truly believe in the cause. But then you always have the wheat and the tares everywhere, so to speak. The ones that are genuine, the ones that are not genuine. And then you also have a third group that are just kind of like in between. They just kind of like go along. They're easily influenced by the prevailing environment. So if you have more genuine people, they're going to like go along to get along. If you have more toxic people, fake people, again, go along to get along. You conform for your own social safety. So, but things like this, I think it really reaches those people that just want to be contrarian, the people that are just troublemakers, that they love chaos, namely sociopaths, psychopaths, which combined psychology calls antisocial personality disorder, as well as narcissists, and just any toxic personality that they don't really care about the cause. They are just in it for the fun and for their own self-interest. So for example, say that you're a narcissist and the way that you live life is you're trying to get attention and you're trying to stand out and you're trying to be special, and you don't care in what way you get that attention or validation. So you see this popping off, and you want to set yourself aside from like your family, friends who are all conservative, or they're just normal members of society. You want to be like different and stand out and, be a revolutionary or something like that. And so this is a perfect opportunity because somebody is already fostering this and funding it. And then you just step into it and you put on your costume, and they literally put on costumes. It's so bizarre. And then you share it on social media. You share it to your friends and families that are just normal, out of touch people. You share it with your family members that you perceive as, oh, they're just mainstream Americans. They're Christians. I'm going to show them how different I am, how high-minded I am. I'm going to show it to them. I'm also going to show it to my immediate friends that are with me. I'm going to outdo them. I'm going to be the most pro this or anti that. Right. And I feel, this is just my own personal opinion, but I feel like you can really tell a lot about a person by their countenance, their eyes, their body behavior, even just their face. Also the way that they look, because look, either you have that gift or you don't. I think that we can all have it to some extent. And I know that some of you know what I'm talking about. You can look at a person and you can tell that something is off, or there's not a whole lot going on there. The lights are on, but nobody's home. And a lot of times, whether it's this protest or some other protest, when you look at these people and they like have these like little side interviews, you have a YouTube channel that's interviewing the protesters, just their tone of voice, their like blank stare, the blank look in their eyes, it's just like, these are people that are being manipulated. Okay. Toxic people are easy to manipulate. Narcissists are easy to manipulate because they follow very rigid patterns. So they're very predictable because by definition, they're part of this pattern. And if you know the pattern, then you can manipulate it. So the power players, they understand this. They understand, number one, you have genuine people that believe in this cause that you can tap into, but even more helpful, you have all these people that just want trouble, just want attention, that would be more than happy to quote unquote join the cause for their own benefit. And so you foster that, you make it possible, you make it easy, you make it acceptable, right? Um, you give them the perception that it's okay for you to do this. You are justified in doing this, right? And so you like open the door for this bad behavior to take place. Again, you do have genuine people that, depending on the cause, they may just be confused, or their cause could be right. I'm not saying that in this instance. Don't get me wrong. But you have the genuines, but then you make it even more possible and acceptable for the other ones, the contrarians, the toxic people, the sociopaths, to also join in. So it's just, that's how I see it. That's how I see it. I don't think the majority of Americans or the world support this kind of behavior and this extremism. And it's not just on this side, by the way, although they are, I think, a lot more prone to it. You see it on the other side of the spectrum as well. You see it on all sides. You always have these extremists. You always have them. It does not matter the ideology, the political party. You always have the freaking narcissists and people that want to, use that as their costume and outdo everybody else. I'm the most this, I'm the most that, I'm the most passionate, I'm the most whatever. So the best thing to do to combat this is you yourself be a regular person. Be able to see nuances, be able to concede when something's right, also recognize when something's wrong. So if there's something on your side and it's not in line with the gospel, then concede, yeah, well, I can still be this political party, but this is definitely wrong. This goes against the gospel. You try and compromise and try and reach out without compromising your own values. You do what you can to build bridges, and you spread the gospel. I think that people that truly embrace the gospel are not radical. They're less prone to being seduced into this kind of behavior. So that's why it's important to share the Book of Mormon and to share the gospel, invite people to church, right? So some of these people, I think the genuine ones, some of them are just looking for meaning, they're genuinely lost. And they may not know very much. They may think that this really is a good cause. And so they're trying to find purpose in their life. And so they get into something like this. I saw that a lot in the Army. The Army, the military, it's full of people that are just lost. And that's how they end up in the military. Not all of them. A lot of them, they intentionally, it's always been their plan. They wanted to join the military. Whether an officer or enlisted, and that's like really what they wanted to do. But there's also another sizable population, I think, in the military that they just kind of like they're floating in life, and so they just kind of get snatched up, by the recruiters, and then they join the military. And I noticed so many of them, especially like in basic training, so many of them just kind of like almost like exploring themselves and exploring religion. There's like a lot of like religious curiosity, it seems, in the military, especially the younger soldiers. So it's sad. There's a lot of people out there without meaning. There's also just predators out there that are just looking for opportunities like this. And the people at the top that are orchestrating these things, they're doing it because they're trying to achieve some kind of goal, and sometimes I think it's successful and other times it's not. I would have to say in the case of Iran with those protests, they were not successful. So it's not like you win 100% of the time. It's just like any other weapon of war. Sometimes you hit the target, sometimes you don't. So and then lastly, I should have mentioned this before. It's pretty shocking because, you have, I've done a couple of videos about this. It's been a while, but you have Ehud Barak, who right here on YouTube at a Chatham House in a forum, like he was talking about bringing down the Israeli government through the protests. Just like that, just out in the open, just out in the open talking about, if we do this, if we maintain these numbers, like the government's going to come down. I'm not kidding you. So I'll leave this in the description box below. They also talk about it in this Israel Today article. See, Barak detailed plans to bring down government 3 years ago. And that's something that's kind of ongoing. It got interrupted because of the war, but I don't know. You could go so far. I could say like so much more, but I'm not going to go too far down this path. It's kind of beyond the scope of this channel. But yeah, this video is just for those of you that are like, hey, why don't you talk about the protests? Well, here you go. And when it comes down to the final war that's going to culminate in the siege of Jerusalem, it's probably going to be something along these lines. You have two different sides. It's like a multifaceted, multi-layer conflict going on in the world, and it is good versus evil. And you have these people that are more given over to that which is evil. It's like you have a lot of these that just want to be on the opposite side of good, be on the opposite side of Christianity, be on the opposite side of morality and things like that. And it doesn't even matter what the cause is. It could be like preserving, it could be like over flamingos in some way. And you'd have these people like dressing up like flamingos and everything would be pink. They don't care. They just want to contradict, and they just want to be on the opposite side. So anyway, okay, yeah, I've said enough. That's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.